Chapter 1. Previous life. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1. Past life. In the 12th year of Yongjia, in winter, there was heavy snowfall. After the abolition, Xia Jiwei colluded with Yanbei King Shao Sun, and the dynasty fell. The gate of the palace was broken. Emperor Shao Changxian was in a state of embarrassment, and rushed into the cold palace with a sword in his hand. Behind him was Xue Wanqing, who was wearing a 9-phoenix crown and a phoenix robe. Boom! Shao Changxian kicked open the gate of the cold palace, sitting cross-legged in the center of the hall. Xia Jiwei, who was wearing a snow-white single, raised her head, and when she saw the person coming, she bent her lips and smiled. After 10 years, she finally waited for this day. Bitch, are you colluding with Shao Sun and helping him break into the capital? Shao Changxian pointed at Xia Jiwei with the tip of his blood-dripping sword. Yes. Xia Jiwei stood up, ignoring the tyranny and killing intent in Shao Changxian's eyes, and walked towards him step by step. Shao Changxian, you killed my Xia family 10 years ago, you should have thought that today will happen. It was she who saved his life with all her medical skills, planned for him, and worked hard to help him ascend to the throne of God and win this country. But what about Shao Changxian? Today, 10 years ago, mournful cries and shouts came to her ears through the palace walls. The upright father who devoted himself to Daong treated her like his own stepmother and younger brother who was not as weak as the crown. My nephew at the age of ignorance. Beheaded by her husband, the current emperor, at the Meridian Gate. After that, she had nightmares every night, and she dared not close her eyes. Sister, when the Xia family was beheaded, His Majesty pardoned you from death. Not only did you not know how to be grateful, but you actually did such a rebellious thing. Sister, you are so disappointing. Xue Wanqing raised her chin slightly. Even at the time of death, at the end of the day, she still looked at Xia Jiwei with this lofty gaze full of pity and compassion. A light flashed in Xia Jiwei's eyes. If there is anyone in this world who she hates more than Shao Changxian, it is this ungrateful thing right now. Xue Wanqing, you entered my Xia mansion at the age of 6, and you have been raised by more than 10 years of nurturing grace. You are treated the same as my sisters, and you have never been treated badly. The Xia family never expected you to repay half a point. You are like Shao Changxian. The bed is nothing more than that. Why do you want to hate the Xia family so much? Even swaddling babies are not spared. Xue Wanqing's complexion changed several times, a circle of water mist floated in her beautiful eyes, and an angry flame burned in it. I have never treated you badly. I am the same as your sister. Who doesn't know that I am just your aunt of the Xia family, and I have to see it all day long. Your sister's face is so poor. The servants of Xia's family watch people order food, and whenever I give orders, none of them will shirk. You are the eldest daughter of Xia's family, of course you have never experienced the kind of grievance of being dependent on others. Xue Wanqing clenched her hands into fists, her shoulders trembled with grievance, and the pear blossoms were raining, because I refused to agree to the marriage arranged by the Xia family, and refused to bring benefits to the Xia family's marriage. The Xia family slandered me and ruined my reputation everywhere. Xia Jiwei, what right do you have to accuse me? Qing'er, don't be sad, you still have me. Shao Changxian felt distressed, stretched out his arms to hold the beautiful woman in his arms, and said softly, the members of Xia's family are already dead, and the whole family has been destroyed. No one will bully you. Shao Changxian, you are ambitious and ungrateful, you really are a couple of dogs. A man and woman like you should have no children and grandchildren. Xia Ji slightly curled his lips into a smile, sarcastically, Shao Changxian, you have not been the only woman Xue Wanqing in the past 12 years, has anyone been pregnant with your flesh and blood? If not, what use is this huge country left to you? Xue Wanqing woke up suddenly, and pointed at Xia Jiwei in shock. It's you, right? It's you who made His Majesty unable to have a child. That's right. Xia Ji's slightly red lips curved slightly. I am grateful that all of my family members are dead, and you are still alive. It's already too much for heaven's sake. Why should you let Xiao Changxian have a future? Poisonous woman. Xiao Changxian cursed fiercely with red eyes. The reason why I was willing to marry you back then was because you were the leader of the Xie family, and you should be able to use it for me. Who knows, my grandfather and father were extremely pedantic, they refused to respond to everything for me, and there was no gain in finding a position for me. Since the Xie family refused to be used by me, what's the use of keeping it? Xie Jiwei, if I had known today, I should have sent you and my family that day. Thank you for going on the road together. At this moment, Xiao Changxian really regretted it. He used to think that Qing'er was barren and had to accept a concubine, which broke Qing'er's heart. It turned out that it was Xie Jiwei, who was doing the tricks. He should have suspected it was her. Xie Jiwei moved slowly and approached Xiao Changxian. She had to remember this man, life after life, and she had to remember that her whole life, her relatives, and her friends all died in the hands of this man, and none survived. If there is an afterlife, she will return it 10 times, 100 times, so that he will never be reborn forever. This man, her husband, who used to swear in her ears and talk freely, loves her in this way, which is unforgettable and will never be forgotten. Everything will come to an end. For 10 years, she lived in the cold palace as a waste empress. She suffered all the torture and humiliation from this pair of dogs and men. Day after day, she endured the heartache of her people dying because of her. It's a pity, Xiao Changxian, you will never have another chance. Xie Jiwei's lips were full of sarcasm, and there was no hatred and killing intent like a fire in his eyes, but relaxed and indifferent. Xiao Changxian, I have already made an agreement with the new emperor to save your life and let you taste the taste of a subjugated king. From now on, every moment of every day, you and Xue Wanqing will kneel in front of my tablet of Xie's family, repent and plead guilty. Blood overflowed from the corner of Xie Jiwei's lips again, flowing along her snow-white skin, which was shocking. She staggered a bit, but quickly stood firm, leaning her back against a pillar, determined not to fall down. She waited for this day for a full 10 years, planning and calculating day and night, bit by bit subverting the prosperous world she had created, exhausting her efforts. Now that her revenge has been avenged, she has no regrets. Everything in front of her eyes slowly dissipated in her eyes, and finally, there was only a beautiful young man in silver armor and a red cloak flying in the wind, walking quickly with a gun in hand. Xiao Changxian can't escape. Meet Huang Quan, grandfather, father, mother and younger brothers, can you forgive her? Xie Jiwei slowly closed his eyes, leaving a peaceful smile on his face, full of anticipation. Golden autumn and October are suitable for opening new books. On the last day of October, catch a tip of the tail. Thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Rebirth. Cough cough cough. Xie Jiwei wiped off the mist on the eyelashes, and the figure in front of him became clearer and clearer. A small face the size of a palm, skin like creamy fat, a pair of Ruifeng eyes are clear and bright, star pupils turn slightly, charming, her lips were like vermilion dye, trembling slightly, as if she had suffered infinite grievances. It's not Xue Wanqing, who is it? See you again so soon. Didn't Xiao Sun promise her that he would keep Xiao Changxian and Xue Wanqing alive and make them kneel for 10 years before sending them on the road? Xiao Sun dared to lie to her. Big cousin, it was clear that you wanted to push me down the pond. I hit a little faster, but you couldn't hold back for a while, so you slid down by yourself. How can you blame me? Xue Wanqing wiped the teardrops from the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. Xue Wanqing is right, Xie Jiwei is a little confused, could it be that they are not in Huangquan? Biao girl, your mouth is really good at talking. I saw with my own eyes that you pushed Mei Mei into the water. Even I admire your ability to reverse black and white. Xie Jiwei looked at the familiar figure in front of her, her nose was sore, her eyes filled with tears. It was her mother. Yuan looked very angry. She rushed forward. Since Mei Mei wants to push cousin into the pond, cousin should stay in the pond for a while. Mrs. Yuan stretched out her hand to grab Xue Wanqing's arm, but Xie Zhiwei hurriedly stopped. Mother, wait a minute. Yuan's body froze for a moment. He couldn't believe it, and thought that his ears were hallucinating. She is Xie Zhiwei's stepmother, and Xie Zhiwei never called her. Xie Zhiwei didn't have time to say anything to Yuan. Sure, she stood up. The soaked clothes felt very uncomfortable on her body. Wrapped in a cloak, she approached Xue Wanqing step by step. The girl was about 10 years old, and she was staring at her with innocent eyes. Big cousin, what do you want to do? Did I slip into the pond by myself? Xie Zhiwei asked calmly, but there was a stern aura in his bones, inviolable. Yes, it's big cousin, you slipped down by yourself. Xue Wanqing burst into tears. Big cousin, it's clear that you wanted to push me, so you slipped down by yourself. The more Xue Wanqing talked, the more she felt that what she said made sense. Although just now, she saw that there was no one around, so she had evil thoughts and pushed Xie Zhiwei into the pond. Xie Zhiwei is the eldest daughter of the Xie family. At a young age, she has an outstanding appearance. She is unparalleled in intelligence. Speaking of the Xie family, only Xie Zhiwei was the only one who didn't know her, Xue Wanqing. Why does a dog like Xie Zhiwei live in the world? Yes, it was Xie Zhiwei who slid down by himself, and no one saw it anyway. Xue Wanqing raised her neck slightly, full of confidence, and said righteously, Big cousin, I know you don't like me, but you can't use such means to frame me. Xie Zhiwei and Xue Wanqing can be said to have known each other for a lifetime, and she knew Xue Wanqing very well. She sneered in her heart, Okay, Xue Wanqing, since I want to push you into the water, how can you stand on the shore? After finishing speaking, Xie Zhiwei grabbed Xue Wanqing's arm. Xue Wanqing turned pale in shock, thinking that this eldest cousin is really crazy. Isn't she afraid that her grandmother will punish her? Big cousin, what do you want to do? Xue Wanqing struggled, Grandma, help. Xie Zhiwei was obviously thin and weak, but her 5 fingers were like iron tongs, and she dragged Xue Wanqing to the edge of the pond. She pushed Xue Wanqing into the pond, kicked him out cleanly, and splashed water in the pond. In the pond, the back of Xue Wanqing's head hit a circle of stones in the middle of the pond, and a cloud of blood spread in the water. Xie Zhiwei stood on the shore, watching Xue Wanqing sinking bit by bit coldly, leaving only a light red on the surface of the water with the rouge-red tapestry cotton beige, and the past and present were repeated in her mind over and over again. Presently, for a moment, Xie Zhiwei's eyes were as cold as frost. Unexpectedly, she was reborn. So soon, she and Xue Wanqing met again. To this day, Xie Zhiwei still can't figure out why Xue Wanqing in her previous life wanted to kill the Xie family. She has lived in Xie's family for more than 10 years, even if she climbed into Xiao Changshuan's bed, Xie's family still never treated her badly, and prepared 120.8 dowries for her, without any perfunctory. Help, help, save the girl is dying. Xue Wanqing's maid, Mu Xiang, was the first to wake up and screamed. The stunned servants rushed into action, and 2 women who could swim quickly jumped into the water and swam toward Xue Wanqing. Xie Zhiwei glanced coldly, turned around and walked towards the backyard. Yuan Shi took a deep breath. She couldn't see through this stepdaughter more and more, and was worried, so she hurriedly chased after her. Mei Mei, let the mothers carry you back room. Stop. The mother and daughter looked up and saw an old lady coming out from the door of the moon cave. Behind her, the servant girls followed her, majestic and magnificent. Nurse you, give me a slap in the face, and beat this cruel, vicious, disrespectful thing hard. The old lady glanced at the pond. Her granddaughter had been rescued, and she looked wet. With a drenched body, closed eyes, and a pale face, he suddenly felt distressed. Nurse Yu walked up to Xie Zhiwei. She raised her chin slightly, squinted at Xie Zhiwei, and said in a strange way, "Miss, I've offended you, this servant is about to attack." After finishing speaking, she rolled up her sleeves, revealing a pair of hands like eagle claws, and raised them high. Xie Zhiwei glanced at the hand, and looked at the old lady. "Grandmother, dare to ask granddaughter what did she do wrong, and grandma wants to punish her like this." Feng Shi was about to have a stroke, her precious granddaughter was about to die, and it was not because of this little hoof, she actually asked what she did wrong so righteously. "You are not filial or fraternal, shouldn't you be punished? Is my cousin dead? Didn't she die? She pushed her granddaughter into the water first. The granddaughter pushed her into the water to educate her. Don't do to others what you don't want to do to others. Is this also wrong? If the grandmother wants to punish the granddaughter, after returning home, ask grandfather. Grandfather thinks that granddaughter should be punished, and granddaughter will not be too late to receive punishment." Feng's body swayed like a leaf in the wind. "Do you think that even I am not qualified to teach you?" "Yuan Shi, is that so?" Mr. Yuan stood beside her, lowering her head and looking down. "Mother, my daughter.in.law is not May's biological mother. My daughter.in.law dare not say anything, for fear that the world will say that her daughter.in.law treats her stepdaughter harshly." Feng's eyes widened, she pointed at the two of them, her hands trembling. Okay, I understand, I am also Yuan Bai's stepmother. What do you mean, as a step-grandmother, I am not qualified to raise you this step-granddaughter? Since that's the case, you don't have to follow me back home." Granddaughter obeys. Xie Zhiwei disapproved, she looked up at Feng Shi. "Granddaughter and mother will stay in Feimin Temple, please grandma return my mother's dowry to me." Today's update. During the new book period, I am depositing manuscripts. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Threaten. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Threats. Yuan Shi glanced at Xie Zhiwei calmly. Of course she knew that the mother Xie Zhiwei said referred to her late mother Cui Shi. The Cui family is the same as the Xie family. The poetry and rites have been passed down through the family for more than 100 years. After Cui's death, for so many years, Feng's dowry has been helped to take care of it. Feng Shi was stunned when he heard this. Cui Shi's dowry is so rich that no one can match it for so many years. Feng Shi knows better than anyone else how much it is worth. Who would be willing to spit out the meat that has been eaten? Feng has always been able to handle this granddaughter very well, and never thought of returning Cui's dowry to Xie Zhiwei. In Cui's dowry, shops, farms, furniture and utensils, gold, silver and jade, cloth, antique calligraphy and paintings, etc., are all high-quality goods. She has picked out a lot of them for the future. How could she return them to her granddaughter? What about Xie Zhiwei? The Xie family has raised this granddaughter for 10 years, but she is still not satisfied. Sure enough, she is not her own. While Feng was sizing up Xie Zhiwei was also thinking that in his previous life, if Feng hadn't insisted on bringing his cousin Shui Wanqing into the mansion after his aunt died, he wouldn't have raised a Zhongshan wolf. In this life, she will never let anyone touch her own things again, let alone let Feng Shi and Shui Wanqing and others harm her family. Why, isn't grandma going to return the granddaughter's mother's dowry to her granddaughter? Xie Zhiwei heaved a long sigh. It's never been heard in the capital that the mother.in.law would take the daughter.in.law's dowry. Go out, don't know the future, how will fourth uncle talk about marriage? Feng's pupils shrank slightly. When did I say that I would not hand over your mother's dowry to you? Sure enough, it was difficult for my step grandmother. After your mother passed away, I helped you take care of your mother's dowry for so many years. Not only did you not say a word with half a word of gratitude, it is unreasonable to frame me for swallowing your mother's dowry. Grandmother, hasn't she heard the words of Li Xia in the melon field? Xie Zhiwei didn't show her gratitude at all. In the previous life, Feng Shi didn't return her mother's dowry to her. Feng swallowed half of her mother's dowry, and gave the rest to Xue Wanqing. Even if I didn't say that my grandmother swallowed my mother's dowry, the world would not believe that my grandmother didn't covet it at all. Xie Zhiwei said mercilessly. Feng only felt that today this granddaughter was as if she had eaten gunpowder, invulnerable to oil and salt, invulnerable to swords and guns, and she was so cunning at such a young age. Mrs. Yuan, since Miss Wei was brought up by you, do you have the slightest responsibility to raise her? Don't forget that when I allowed you to come in and become Yuan Bai's successor, it was for you to take good care of Miss Wei. Son. Xie Zhiwei knew in her heart that half of Feng's attack on Yuan was because she didn't like Yuan, and the other half was to take the anger she had received from her on Yuan. She smiled slightly. Grandmother, you should go see your cousin first. Cousin has always been delicate, just now I saw her head was hit, so don't do anything wrong. After all, she is not my girl from the Xie family. The Xie family helped the Xue family raise the girl. It is right to raise the girl well. If it is not well raised, it is the fault. When Mrs. Feng heard this, she ignored Xie Zhiwei and walked toward Xue Wanqing. Xie Zhiwei's words came from behind. I remember that there is my mother's dowry list in Shantian Mansion. Feng's feet staggered, but fortunately, Nanny Yu had sharp eyesight and quick hands, and supported her. Xue Wanqing was rescued, like a puppet, let the maids take care of her. Sister Qing, my sister Qing, how are you doing? Seeing Xue Wanqing's ignorance and understanding, Mrs. Feng felt like a fool, thinking that this was the only blood left by her daughter. Her heart ached, and she hated Xie Zhiwei to death. Grandmother. Xue Wanqing called out tentatively. Seeing that her granddaughter was not stupid, Mrs. Feng was overjoyed, and hugged Xue Wanqing into her arms. Sister Qing, you scared grandma to death. Xue Wanqing couldn't believe it, so she stayed up all night to read an old saying about pearls in the palm, which was about fighting against palaces and houses. When she woke up, she became the heroine of this novel. Grandmother, I'm fine. Xue Wanqing leaned into Feng's arms. Grandmother, it's Qing'er's fault. It's Qing'er's fault that she shouldn't make big cousin angry. Grandmother, please don't punish big cousin. Xue Wanqing's tears came as soon as she said it, and 2 lines of tears hung on her pale cheeks, looking very charming. My sister Qing, why are you so stupid? Feng's heart ached so much that she couldn't help herself. Grandmother can't tolerate this matter. This time it's your fate, so you escaped. What if there is a next time? Xue Wanqing lowered her eyes. She said it on purpose. Even if she didn't say it, Feng would punish Xie Zhiwei. She is the granddaughter of Feng's direct relative, and Xie Zhiwei's existence would only remind Feng all the time that she was just a stepmother. How could the Feng family tolerate her? Since she has already transmigrated into this book and is the protagonist, if she cannot live a beautiful life, how can she be worthy of herself? Xue Wanqing felt that there was still a trace of obsession left by the original body in her heart. Xue Wanqing said in her heart, don't worry, I will avenge you, and it will be my reward for occupying your body. Sure enough, when she thought about it, that remnant thought disappeared. Xue Wanqing was carried back to the wing by her mother. Law. After wiping her body clean, changed into dry clothes, and drank a bowl of thick soup, Feng ordered her to leave for her home. Xie's family came to Feimen Temple this time to pay filial piety to Xue Wanqing's 3-year-old mother, and made a special trip to perform ceremonies. No one informed Xie Zhiwei and Yuan Shi. Feng Shi's meaning was obvious. She kept her word and had no intention of letting them go back home. In the carriage, Xue Wanqing asked knowingly, Grandmother, eldest aunt and eldest cousin are not returning home. Are they still angry with Qing'er? Or should Qing'er go and apologize to eldest cousin? Feng gently patted Xue Wanqing, her poor granddaughter, who lost her mother at a young age. She was afraid that her granddaughter would make a living under the hands of her stepmother, so she took her to Xie's family, but Xie's family always disliked her granddaughter. Sister Qing, don't worry, Grandma will definitely uphold justice for you this time, and Grandma will be there for everything. Feng comforted. Shui Wanqing slightly curved her lips, and a dark light flashed in her eyes. The original body was not a fool. She knew that without Xie Zhiwei, she would be the best among the noble girls in the capital. Unfortunately, the original body was short-lived. The honor is going to be hers. In the wing room of Feimin Temple, Yuan Shi was surprised when she heard that the old lady and her party had left. What did you say? The old lady really left? Yes, eldest lady, we don't have a carriage anymore. Tian Nanny was also furious. The old lady left the eldest lady and eldest girl in the temple alone. What's the matter? Spread out, what is the reputation? It has always been the case that the female family members in central Beijing live in temples and Taoist temples for a long time, either because they did something wrong and were punished, or they came to pray for blessings. How could the old lady be so kind to explain to people that they stayed here to pray for blessings? It's still a regular update, let's update it every morning at 8 o'clock for the time being. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Queen, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Queen. From early autumn to early autumn, sweet fragrance wafts from the osmanthus forest on the mountain behind Feimin Temple. Xie Zhiwei leaned on an green golden embroidered bat pillow, with thick black hair hanging down. His small face was pale, his eyebrows were slightly frowned, and the cherry petals were unnaturally white. She heard Yuan Shi's words, and comforted her. Mother, don't worry, we will go back, but not now. Yuan Shi was very anxious. She quickly sat down beside the bed. Sister Wei, mother is not afraid of anything, but you are different, you haven't discussed marriage yet. If you let people outside know, it's old. If the wife doesn't take you back, what will happen in the future? When Yuan Shi got up in a hurry, she was confused. She stood up suddenly. No, I have to send someone to tell the old man that the old man is the eldest girl's biological grandfather, so he will definitely not ignore this matter. Mother, there's no need. Xie Zhiwei took Yuan's sleeve. It's hard to come out. We will stay in Feimin Temple for 2 more days before going back. If she remembers correctly, the Empress and Princess will also come to Feimin Temple this afternoon. After giving birth to the eldest princess, the Empress had no child for many years. At that time, the Empress didn't know that she was pregnant, so she ran to Feimin Temple to ask for a child. Unexpectedly, when she was in Guilin, she slipped down. The hard-1 baby is gone. If she can save the queen, if the queen can give birth to a boy, the son of the Middle Palace is worthy of the name of the prince. Will Xiao Changxian still have the throne in the future? When the Xie family's carriage was leaving the mountain gate, it happened to meet the Queen's EU, who had to wait aside. Grandmother, is the Empress? Did the Empress go to Feimin Temple to offer incense? Shui Wanqing asked curiously. Feng's complexion was already ugly. If she had known this, she would have stayed. If she could not see the Empress, even if she could be heard by the Empress, it would be different. It's really cheap for the mother and daughter. Thinking of this, Mrs. Feng ordered Madame Yu, leave 2 carriages and let the eldest wife and eldest girl come back quickly. Nurse Yu also felt that the mother and daughter could not be allowed to stay. If they got the Empress' favor, would the mother and daughter still pay attention to the old lady in the future? Since the Queen's car had entered the temple, the guards of the Imperial Guards took over the guards on the outside. These things, Xie Zhiwei didn't know at all. In the afternoon, the sun was just right. After Xie Zhiwei and Yuan Shi packed up, they went to pay their respects to the Empress. The Empress and Princess were admiring the sweet-scented osmanthus in the back mountain. 2 young eunuchs spread a layer of clean cloth on the ground and beat the sweet-scented osmanthus with a bamboo pole. Hearing that it was the eldest wife and eldest daughter of the Xie family who were asking to see her, the Empress smiled and said, I was just saying that this place is clean and there is no one to talk to. Since they are interested, please come in. Queen, let's go over there and have a look, the osmanthus over there is beautiful. The eldest princess was 12 or 13 years old, just at the age of innocence. She saw a piece of sweet osmanthus in the north, layered like a treasure cover, and the branches were like golden millet, with a strong fragrance, like red clouds printed and dyed, and she was very excited. Okay, go and have a look. The empress had only one child, the eldest princess, who was usually held in her palm for fear of falling, and held in her mouth for fear of melting. This time, if the princess hadn't come to Famen temple to ask the bodhisattva to give her a younger brother, the queen would not have come. The eldest princess let go of the queen's hand and ran towards Dangwalin. The queen walked behind, her eyes never leaving her daughter, as if infected by her daughter's joy, her pace couldn't help but quicken. Empress, be careful. Nanny Shi saw the empress's body tilted and rolled down the slope. Before she could finish her sentence, she rushed over and put her body under the empress's body. Queen. The eldest princess was so scared that her face turned pale. She rushed towards the queen and quickly helped her up. I'm fine. The queen's face turned pale suddenly, and her body was hot. She didn't dare to move at once, and the familiar feeling came, making her face ashen. The people in the palace were in chaos, some went to invite the imperial physician, some went to prepare the chariot, and she asked the queen to be picked up and ran towards the yard. Xia Jiwei and Yuan Shi just caught up. Seeing the red blood stains on the queen's skirt, her heart sank. She quickly lifted the skirt and followed quickly. Where's the imperial physician? Why hasn't the imperial physician come yet? Nanny Shi was as anxious as ants on a hot pot. Seeing Xia Jiwei and Yuan Shi stepping in, she was very unhappy, and winked at a court lady next to her. The palace maid came to bless Fushan. The empress is not feeling well, please thank the eldest lady and the eldest lady to come back another day. Xia Jiwei ignored the court lady, she walked quickly to Nanny Shi. Mama, my uncle is Dr. Chui, who is known as Dayong's miracle physician. I also have a little knowledge of medicine. The empress is in critical condition, please allow me diagnose and treat the empress. Nanny Shi looked at this little girl who was not afraid of death, and smiled angrily. Mrs. Xia, please take your daughter and leave. Xia Jiwei didn't expect Nanny Shi to agree at all. She looked at the pale queen and insisted, Empress, if you delay another day or two, this baby will be lost. As soon as this remark came out, the whole room was shocked. The eldest princess looked at the empress in disbelief, and tears welled up in her eyes. She was the one who killed her younger brother. If she hadn't come to Famen temple, the empress would have been able to raise her baby in the palace with peace of mind. The queen didn't speak. As the queen's confidant, Nanny Yu knew what the queen wanted to ask, so she asked, can Miss Xia save the queen? At this moment, both the queen and Madame Yu thought that the palace asked for a ping and pulse every 10 days, and the last ping and pulse was yesterday, but from the beginning to the end, no imperial doctor told the empress that she was pregnant. The room gradually filled with a smell of blood. How will you know if you don't try? Xia Jiwei has a plan in mind. Presumptuous. Nanny Yu scolded angrily, she was indeed an ignorant little girl, how could the empress use her to try her hand? The empress is pregnant with a dragon species. If there is an emergency, who still has 2 heads? Xia Jiwei, come and save my mother. The eldest princess was in tears, looking extremely pitiful. Xia Jiwei took a deep breath. Before she made this plan, she had asked ZMO to prepare a set of silver needles for her. At this moment, she walked to the queen's bed, and said calmly, please make room for the princess. The eldest princess took 2 steps back. Looking at Xia Jiwei's thin and weak shoulders, for some reason, she felt her heart gradually calm down. Do you know that if the child in my womb is not safe, even if I don't want to hold you accountable, the emperor will punish you? The queen looked at the child who was about the same age as her own daughter, and couldn't help it. Reminded. The courtiers know, but when my uncle taught the women's medical skills, the first lesson was the benevolence of the doctors. Xia Ji pursed his lips slightly, and a flash of determination flashed in his eyes. New book, please collect and vote. The cover is online, does it look good? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Surprise, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Surprise. The queen closed her eyes. She knew whether the imperial physician would come soon, or even if she did, she would not appear until the baby in her womb was born. Both the first 2 times. Right now, she can only pin her hopes on this 10-year-old child. Xie Jiwei skillfully pricked several large points on the queen's body, and she injected the needles steadily, accurately and quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen silver needles appeared on the queen's body. At the door, Imperial Physician Wang, who stepped in with 1 foot, was stunned, his eyes full of horror. A layman watches the excitement, while an insider watches the doorway. He has been practicing medicine for decades, and he can tell at a glance that although this little girl is only about 10 years old, her acupuncture skills are extraordinary. People are comparable. The atmosphere in the room was very dull, making people breathless. Everyone's eyes were on the Empress, and everyone was silent. It wasn't until the queen's frown became flatter, and the pained look on her face gradually disappeared, that everyone's faces showed surprise, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Physician Wang is here. A court lady in Xing-Yi whispered, and everyone looked at the door, only to see Dr. Wang trotting in with a medical box, and with a plop, knelt down and confessed, "Empress, your Majesty. Guilty, late. You are indeed guilty." The eldest princess said angrily, "The queen mother is pregnant, did you know it?" Imperial Physician Wang kowtowed, "Princess, please calm down. I haven't asked for a peace pulse for the Empress recently, and there has never been a pregnancy pulse in the Empress's pulse case. I don't know. Those who do not know are not guilty." The eldest princess still wanted to reprimand her, but the Empress said weakly, "Yuan Jia, it's none of Wang's business." Dr. Wang breathed a sigh of relief. He only had time to look at Xie Jiwei at this time. Seeing that the little girl was only about 10 years old, she gave each injection very quickly, and used different techniques, such as rubbing, scraping the tail, or pressing, or shaking the bomb, flying through and out of breath. The Empress's gray face soon became a little more lively. Xie Jiwei pinched the handle of one of the silver needles, twisted it several times, then spread 2 fingers, rubbed and released, repeated several times, like a bird spreading its wings, and the queen's whole body relaxed accordingly. "All right." Xie Jiwei raised her sleeves and wiped the sweat from her forehead. She quickly reported the names of the medicines: 4 cents for Polygonatum odoratum, 3 cents for Angelica, 1 cent for Dipsacus and 5 cents for Euchomia, 1 cent for Poria, 1 cent for Scutularia, and 1 cent for Atractylodes macrocephala. Money, chuanxiong and licorice are 8 cents each. Imperial Physician Wang frowned. This prescription should be based on Baotai powder, but chuanxiong and licorice only cost 8 cents. He was suspicious when he heard Xie Jiwei say the last 2 medicines, 3 qian for rami root, 3 qian for daughter seed, 1 qian for perilla seed. Sure enough, she was just a 10-year-old girl. Although she was really good at acupuncture, it was probably just a family background. The prescription was not only based on memorizing a few medical books, but experience. I don't know if the girl knows the medicinal properties and efficacy of perilla seeds. Imperial Physician Wang couldn't help asking. Just now, it was clear that Xie Jiwei saved the queen's life. Even if Imperial Physician Wang looked down on Xie Jiwei's ability, he shouldn't have asked such humiliating words. Xie Jiwei looked at Imperial Physician Wang coldly. If she recited the medicinal properties and efficacy of perilla seeds on the spot, even if she was correct word for word, she would be inferior. Dr. Wang clearly meant that she could not prescribe accurate prescriptions by memorizing medical books. "Dare to ask who you are?" Imperial Physician Wang's face turned cold. He was wearing a 5th-rank Imperial Physician's official uniform. "This little girl is clearly from a good family background, can't you tell? My surname is Wang." Imperial Physician Wang said arrogantly. You look like an imperial doctor in your clothes. I don't know who your teacher is. If you don't know the medicine and efficacy of perilla seeds, you might as well go back and read more, Compendium of Materia Medica. Physician Wang was so angry that his face was livid. Compendium of Materia Medica is for people who study medicine, just like 3-character classic is for scholars, it is used for enlightenment. A 10-year-old girl humiliated him so much. Dare to ask who is the teacher of the girl. Wang Tai thought, he didn't have to be serious with a 10-year-old girl, and asked her about her education, but he would go to the little girl's teacher for advice. Xia Jiwei could see clearly the thoughts of Imperial Physician Wang. She glanced at this man with a half-smile, and decided to save some face for him. Why, the girl dare not say it. Imperial Physician Wang stroked the long beard on his chin triumphantly. Practicing medical medicine is related to human life. If the teacher of the girl has not taught the girl these things, the old man is willing to do it for her. The eldest princess snorted coldly. She really didn't know what her father did to raise these useless imperial physicians. Each of them was not very capable and angry. She couldn't help mocking. Miss Xia studied under her uncle Chui, the imperial physician, and you are the imperial physician. With a serious tone, help Miracle Chui to heal and teach his disciples. Thought it was Dr. Chui. Dr. Wang gasped, but he forgot that every generation of the Chui family has a genius doctor who becomes a good doctor if he is not a good looker. But Miss Xia is only 10 years old. Mother began to study medicine in her womb, and it was impossible for her to be very good. Xia Jiwei picked up the prescription written by the little and took a look. There was no mistake, and nodded, take the medicine and decoct it. Seeing that the queen was already well, Nanny she didn't hesitate any longer, and without waiting for orders, she quickly arranged for someone to grab the medicine and stared at the decoction herself. Wang Imperial Physician shook his head in disappointment. How could he drink the soup casually, and said to the queen again, Your Majesty, please listen to my advice. Dr. Wang thinks the Empress is having an ordinary miscarriage. Xia Jiwei didn't wait for the Dr. Wang to finish, and said again, even if the Empress doesn't fall like this today, within 3 days, the fetus will be lost. Physician Wang was shocked. Although he hadn't asked for the Queen's ping and pulse recently, he often asked for it in the past. Why didn't he find any abnormalities? Xia Jiwei seemed to see through his thoughts, and squinted. The Empress has a toxin in her body. This toxin is not harmful to the Empress's body, but it will make the Empress unable to conceive. If you are pregnant with a dragon species, you will definitely be pregnant within 1 month. There will be a miscarriage. If repeated many times, the Empress's body will not be able to bear it, and she will not be pregnant again in the future. Imperial Physician Wang's legs were like sieves, and his body was covered in cold sweat. At this moment, he couldn't care about anything else, and sat down on the stool in front of the Empress's bed. My lady, please take the pulse. The Empress was also stunned and stretched out her hand tremblingly. The left inch is heavy, the left pass is heavy, the right inch is thin and weak, the right pass is needy but lacks spirit. Xia Jiwei pointed out, my lady must have dizziness from time to time these years, and occasionally night sweats when sleeping at night. In the boat, the dysmenorrhea did not recur in the past. All the signs are actually related to the poisoning of the Empress. Fortunately, the Empress is in a strong body. Even if she slips through the second child, it will only make her body less damaged. Otherwise, this child, even if there are minister's girl, it is bound to be hard to protect. After signing the contract, there will be more updates. The contract is on the way. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Eldest son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Long wife. Physician Wang was trembling. If Xia Jiwei hadn't pointed it out, even now, he would not be able to get the pulse. Such a vague pulse, let alone him, would be difficult to figure out even if the Imperial Hospital judged. If it wasn't for Xia Jiwei this time, Imperial Physician Wang didn't dare to think what would happen to him. How many women who had miscarriages in the palace survived? Saved this, and offended that. He didn't want to save his own life, so it would be nice if he didn't implicate the 9 clans. Xia Jiwei also saved his life. A 10-year-old child actually has a good pulse. Physician Wang stood up, bowed his hands to Xia Jiwei, and stood aside without speaking. The queen sees this, what else does she not understand? Everyone knows that miscarriage hurts the most. As a queen, if she always suffers from miscarriages, what will the emperor and the ministers think? Thinking of the previous 2 miscarriages, although they were concealed, they could not be concealed from the emperor. She had already seen disappointment in the emperor's eyes. The other party has such vicious thoughts. Man, angry to the extreme, will soon calm down. The queen took a deep breath. Good boy, thank you so much this time. The eldest princess was also terrified. She shed tears. Sister Wei, will my mother and younger brother really be fine? The eldest princess has never been so polite to any girl before. She is the only direct princess of the empress and the only direct princess of the Yong dynasty, and she lives recklessly. Princess, with the courtiers here, the empress and the dragon child in the empress belly will be fine. Xia Jiwei's words were not insane, and Dr. Wang even admitted in his heart that a person who can have such a good pulse and a good needle, naturally has this ability. The eldest princess and the queen are relieved. If the queen really miscarries again this time, the eldest princess will never be able to forgive herself. After a while, Xia Jiwei pulled out the needles for the queen. She used the needles quickly and pulled them out quickly. With a flick of her hand, dozens of silver needles on the queen's body disappeared. Dr. Wang has practiced this unique skill all his life, but he has never practiced it. At this moment, he is going to be autistic. After taking the medicine, the queen fell asleep. The eldest princess guarded the queen and asked Nanny Shi to send Xia Jiwei out in person. Just after leaving the courtyard where the empress lived, a young monk about the same age ran over, raised his head and asked, "Excuse me, are these Mrs. Xia and Mrs. Xia?" People from the Xia family have ordered Mrs. Xia pack your luggage and go back with the eldest girl as soon as possible, so as not to disturb the cleanliness of the empress and the eldest princess. Nurse She thought that when she was at the foot of the mountain just now, she seemed to have met the driver of the Xia family. Why didn't she see Mrs. Xia's family and the eldest girl go back with them? She had doubts in her heart, but at this moment, it was not the right time to ask. She hurriedly bowed to Xia Jiwei and said, "Miss, I am afraid that the empress will not be able to leave the girl for the time being." Xia Jiwei said to the little novice, "Please help spread the word, just say that the eldest princess and I hit it off right away, and I want to spend 2 more days with the eldest princess in the temple, and return to the mansion after a few days." Xia Jiwei was solid in saving the fetus in the empress's womb, otherwise today another group of people would be killed, and there would be an uproar. Nanny She didn't think that Xia Jiwei's words were taking advantage of the eldest princess tiger skin to flaunt her prestige. On the contrary, she felt that Miss Xia was able to keep the queen's affairs a secret, and she spoke and acted so appropriately at a young age. The daughter brought up by the aristocratic family is really the best. The little novice turned around and left when he got the words. When he passed the words to the person sent by Nanny Yu, the person was dumbfounded. "I really come here for whatever I am afraid of." The daughter-in-law was in a hurry, so she hurried back to report, for fear that if the old lady got angry, she would turn her anger on herself. There is a lesson to be learned from the world. She obviously tried her best to convey the old lady's order as soon as possible. Who would have thought that the eldest girl is really powerful, and with a little effort, she really managed to cling to the eldest princess. When the daughter-in-law rushed back to the mansion, the old lady had just tidied up, and Xue Wanqing was there too. She had washed and changed, and was sitting next to the old lady. Seeing that neither Yuan Shi nor Xia Jiwei came back, Xue Wanqing had a bad feeling in her heart. As the daughter-in-law reported more and more reports, she could hardly hide her complicated emotions. Could it be that she and Xia Jiwei's first meeting will the first confrontation be a failure? Miss Fong was sitting on a bed of arhats with 7 screens inlaid with mahogany and marble, holding a string of 18 sun bracelets inlaid with Canaan incense and inlaid with golden longevity characters. Actually gave the mother and daughter a good chance to cling to the eldest princess. After the queen gave birth to the eldest princess, although she had no children for many years, her mother clan was very powerful, and the empress was dignified and virtuous. Naturally, the empress cannot be offended. Not only can't offend, but also let the queen know that he is not kind to the eldest house, otherwise, Xie's family will become the laughing stock of the entire capital. Since their mother and daughter want to pray for Yuan Bai at Famen Temple, then come back 2 days later, and you send someone to inform Funyuan, and ask the subordinates to pack up the daily necessities of the eldest wife and eldest girl to I went to Famen Temple, and I said that I would send someone to pick me up in 2 days. Xue Wanqing was a little confused, she called, Grandma. I am so wronged. The old lady had no choice but to look at Xue Wanqing distressedly, and comforted, Miss Qing, don't worry, your grandmother will decide everything for you. Xue Wanqing lowered her eyes, of course she knew what Feng was thinking, her eyes were full of hatred, but she said, Grandmother, Qing'er is worried about the eldest cousin, dealing with the eldest princess is not like playing with the sisters in the house, because the eldest cousin is the elder, we will all give way to her. If the eldest cousin doesn't know how to be humble and offends the eldest princess, wouldn't it be a disaster for the house? Nurse Yu couldn't help but glanced at Xue Wanqing, as if she didn't know this cousin girl a little bit. The old lady hurriedly called to the woman who was going to send the message, just send the things over, don't say I will send someone to pick them up. Wait until that day, if Xie Jiwei did not offend the eldest princess, then think about what to do. The empress had a good night's sleep and became much more energetic. She leaned on a large birthday welcome pillow embroidered with clouds and dragons in red. She just ate a bowl of japonica rice porridge, and her energy improved by half. She heard Mammy Shi talking about Xie's family. It turns out that the old lady of the Xie family is so confused. First of all, Mrs. Xie's dowry can be regarded as a red dowry. After she went, it fell into the hands of the old lady. Miss Biao got into a dispute, she favored Miss Xue Biao, and deliberately did not bring Mrs. Xie and Mrs. Xie back to the mansion. Later, when she heard that the Empress was coming, she sent a daughter-in-law to tell Mrs. Xie and Mrs. Xie hurry back. It was because I was afraid of Xie's family, but the chance happened to fall into the eyes of the Empress. Bisheng, Miss Xie's family is amazing. The eldest princess was very angry when she heard this, Mother, it is too much for Mrs. Xie to bully Sister Wei like this. When I return to the palace, my mother will announce Mrs. Xie into the palace and give me a good admonition. I'm just a little impulsive. If I reprimand Mrs. Xie in the palace, will Miss Xie look good? However, you still have to beat it. In recent years, there are no people in the capital. I know, the Xie family has an eldest daughter. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Different You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Another The temple sent a table of vegetarian meals, vegetarian roast goose, goose skin, citron tofu, luo hanjai, vinegared mandarin fish, roasted pigeon eggs, stewed sea cucumber. Not to mention extremely rich, all of them are the signature vegetarian banquet of Famen Temple, the signature dish that will appear. Mother, this is Master Yizikin's handicraft. Xie Jiwei was so greedy that he drooled after just smelling it. Miss guessed it right, this is the vegetarian banquet made by Master Yizikin from Famen Temple himself. Nanny Yu smiled from the side, it was delivered by the Empress herself, and said it was for the eldest girl eat. Mother, Master Yizikin once said, as long as there are some meat dishes, you can make vegetarian dishes with the same taste. He has studied vegetarian food all his life, traveled all over the world to learn art, and only when he was old, he placed orders at Famen Temple. Isho vegetarian banquet is well known in the north and south, and now he is almost 80 years old, and his apprentice cooks the dishes on weekdays. Unexpectedly, I can still eat a vegetarian dish made by Master Yizukan in this life. No one will believe it if it is said. However, it must be that Feynman Temple wanted to curry favor with the Empress, and she followed suit. How old are you, and you still have to spend your whole life? Yuan sure thought it was funny. Her stepdaughter is really powerful. Since she has a relationship with the Empress, she is not afraid that the old lady will not back down and compromise. She is not in a hurry now. Living in Feynman Temple, it is a good thing to be so close to the Empress. The mother and daughter sat at the table and ate a fast meal happily. Because Xie Jiwei was tired today, she went to bed after washing up early. The eldest princess managed to spend the night outside the palace, and she was going to come to play with Xie Jiwei. Unexpectedly, the palace people said that the lights in Xie Jiwei's yard had been turned off. Early the next morning, the eldest princess came to find Xie Jiwei, and the two had breakfast together. Xie Jiwei went to take the Empress's pulse again, and administered an injection. There are overlapping layers of osmanthus flowers all over the mountain, including golden osmanthus, silver osmanthus, and osmanthus osmanthus, each with its own characteristics and rich aroma. Sister Wei, I recognize you as my younger sister today. If you have any embarrassing things in the future, you must tell me. I am the Princess of Daong, and my people are not allowed to be bullied. The eldest princess stared at Xie Jiwei. It would be best for her to say right now that her step-grandmother and step-mother are bullying her, so that she can openly ask her mother to admonish them. Of course, Xie Jiwei could feel the kindness and closeness of the eldest princess. She smiled, Your Highness, you have to rely on yourself to live your life, and my daughter can be close to Her Highness, and I am honored to serve the Empress. Naturally, they will weigh 3 points. But the Empress and His Highness cannot protect the courtiers all the time. After all, the courtiers must stand up by themselves so that they will not be bullied. The eldest princess thought a little bit. Last night, the Queen Mother said the same thing to her. She also felt that the Queen Mother is really stingy. Sister Wei saved the lives of the Queen Mother and younger brother. Why can't the Queen Mother protect Sister Wei more? But now, she felt that what Sister Wei said was really reasonable. You mean, you want to find a place for yourself? Xie Jiwei was surprised. Shouldn't Her Royal Highness live in a deep palace? Where did she learn this quack talk? Oh, don't care who I listen to, anyway, tell me what you plan to do. His Royal Highness is really insightful. No matter who bullied the court lady wants to return it by herself. However, if the court lady can't deal with it, she will definitely ask His Highness for help. Since that's the case, why do you still have a courtier? Yes, Sister Yuan Jia. Xie Ji said with a smile. She was born pink and jade-carved, the baby fat on her cheeks has not faded away, her pair of watery peach blossom eyes are like autumn water in the clear sky, her cherry lips are unstained and vermilion, and her head is paired with ruby beads, very cute. In the previous life, in the future, she will also be beautiful and beautiful. The eldest princess was very happy and couldn't help but rubbed her head, so good. In a flash, 3 days passed. The Empress cannot stay in the temple for a long time, she is in a hurry to return to the palace. After Xie Jiwei performed acupuncture for the queen again, she raised her hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead. After all, she was young, and she had to pull out the poison from the queen's body in the shortest possible time. It really took a lot of effort. Okay. Xie Jiwei put away the needle. Your Majesty's body is fine, and 70% to 80% of the poison in her body has been pulled out. After returning to the palace, you only need to take the medicine twice a day according to the prescription prescribed by the minister. Half a month later, the courtier will enter the palace once, to feel the pulse of the Empress, and then see if it is necessary to take medicine according to the situation. The eldest princess was so worried. Sister Wei, can't you enter the palace with me? I'm worried that something will happen to the Queen Mother. Sister Yuanjia, don't worry, your mother has a strong body, as long as you don't bump into it, or eat the wrong food, you will be fine. Okay, Yuan Jia, the Empress is fine, the Empress just caught a cold by accident, and she will be fine after taking 2 doses of medicine. The Empress said to Xie Zhiwei kindly, Wei girl, I still have to trouble you to enter the palace tomorrow. Gong wants to know how this poison got into my body. Xie Zhiwei lowered her eyes, and she knew that the Empress had no children, and she was able to secure her position in the Middle Palace not only because of her natal family's power. It seems that the Empress did not intend to let the palace know that she was pregnant, so I don't know, who is the Empress planning to plot against. Xie Zhiwei's eyes flashed a dark light, this is a good opportunity, but it is not easy to plan well. Empress, I also want to enter the palace to play with Sister Yuanjia tomorrow. I heard that the palace is very fun. The queen was very satisfied, Wei girl, you don't need to hand over the sign when you enter the palace tomorrow. I will ask Nanny Shi to pick you up. I will leave for the palace in the afternoon, so you can go with me. Yes, thank you, Empress Dowager. Xie Zhiwei saluted with blessings, which was not bad at all. Early in the morning, Feng received the news that the Empress was going back to the palace and asked Yuan and Xie Zhiwei to accompany her back to the city. She couldn't sit still anymore and got up quickly, prepare the car, I will pick up her mother and daughter in person. Go back home. She really didn't expect that Xie Zhiwei would have the ability to make the Empress treat her differently. BDNV Feng Shi walked out while giving orders. She must arrive before the Empress leaves the temple, seize the opportunity, and go to say hello to the Empress. Mrs. Feng took Nanny Yu out of the yard quickly, and then, the carriage sped up all the way, and arrived in front of the mountain gate of Famen Temple before the Empress Luan drove away. From a distance, Mrs. Feng could see that the queen came out in a chariot, Xie Zhiwei was talking and laughing with the eldest princess, and Mrs. Yuan walked quietly beside her, smiling at Xie Zhi from time to time, with a motherly look on her face. Feng's heart was extremely complicated, she was about to go up to meet her, but before she moved, a round-faced came over and stopped her, everyone else, stay out of the way. The queen didn't even look this way. After the queen got off the chariot, she got on the one carriage. After Xie Zhiwei said a few words to the eldest princess, the princess also got on the carriage with her skirt in her hand. Before she left, she glanced at Feng Shi and didn't let Mrs. Feng came forward to say hello. Empress, elder sister Yuan Jia, go slowly. Xie Zhiwei took 2 steps back, the little girl's voice was clear and clear, like a yellow warbler coming out of the valley. The car rumbled away. Feng could only watch the car drive away, she couldn't help taking a deep breath, suppressing the anger in her heart, and walked towards Yuan's mother and daughter. Today's update. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Juvenile, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Boys, we're all a family. Since I'm here, why don't you tell the Empress and let me go and greet the Empress and the eldest princess? Feng asked angrily. Xie Zhiwei turned around and seemed to see Mrs. Feng, why is Grandma here? Isn't the memorial day for the former son and aunt already past? Why is Grandma coming to Famen Temple? Have you ever talked to elders like this? Feng Shi really didn't want to see Xie Zhiwei at all, as long as he saw her, he would think of Lu Shi. She saw Xie Tiao riding a horse on the street back then, she fell in love at first sight, and she still couldn't forget him when she learned that he was married. Later, after a lot of difficulty, Mrs. Lu died, and she planned this marriage, which was bestowed by the late emperor. The decree ordered Xie Tiao and the Feng family to marry in a state of filial piety. Xie Tiao resolutely resisted the decree and insisted on keeping filial piety for his first wife for 3 years. What made Feng Shi even more angry was that Xie Tiao asked her to serve as a concubine in front of Lu Shi's memorial tablet on the day she entered the door. Mother, in the past few days, Mei Mei served in front of the Empress and played with the eldest princess. The Empress repeatedly praised Mei Mei for being dignified and respectful, but also cute. Yuan laughed. With the praise of the empress, no one would believe even if Mrs. Feng said that Xie Jiwei was rebellious. Feng made up his mind to ruin Xie Jiwei's reputation, but unexpectedly, he gave her a chance to curry favor with the empress and princess. Feng Sure felt as uncomfortable as eating a pile of shit. She gave Yuan Sure a hard look, and said unwillingly, "If that's the case, come home with me. Grandmother, granddaughter and mother should live in Zhuangzi. How can the granddaughter let the grandmother change the order? If so, the granddaughter is unfilial." Xie Jiwei didn't appreciate it at all. Feng's whole body was trembling with anger, but Yuan's was beating the side drum beside him. Mei, how can this work? The empress will call you into the palace tomorrow. If you live in Zhuangzi, it will be too far away. Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, unable to hide his surprise. The empress has only returned to the palace today, and she will summon Xie Jiwei tomorrow. Is she so popular? For so many years, apart from the niece of the empress's natal family, I have never heard that the empress values any noble daughter of a minister's family. After a little thought, Feng made a decision. Sister Wei, it's my grandmother's fault for this matter. Grandma loves your cousin too. She didn't even ask about the ins and outs. She punished you. It is also a deep love and a serious responsibility. Grandma is also kind and afraid that you will make a detour. Grandma is here today, came here to pick you and your mother home. Granddaughter dare not. There is no reason in this world for elders to take care of younger ones. Granddaughter knows that grandmother came here specially to pay her respects to the empress. Feng's face turned black with anger. Why didn't she know that this step-granddaughter was so difficult to deal with? But now, the queen calls, and she absolutely cannot stop her. If she talks nonsense in front of the queen after entering the palace, wouldn't it bring disaster to the Xie family? After the death of her daughter, her granddaughter became her cusp. Feng still hoped to find a good marriage for her granddaughter. Is there any family in this world that can compare with the royal family? If the granddaughter can become a royal concubine, will there be less glory and wealth in this life? Thinking about it, Feng's blood is hot all over. Feng made a gentle and loving look, and said softly, Sister Wei, Grandma knows that you are still blaming your cousin in your heart, and Grandma has also heard that it was your cousin who pushed you into the pond first. This is because your cousin did something wrong. You have always been a well-behaved child, because your aunt died young and your cousin has no one to educate you, so don't argue with your cousin. Although my aunt is gone, isn't my cousin raised by my grandma? Could it be that my grandmother didn't raise her cousin well? If the old lady of the Xue family finds out about this, she might not be able to make trouble with our family. Return the cousin to the Xue family. Don't blame our family for the Xue family's ungratefulness in the future. Well, how can this work? Your aunt is gone, who in the Xue family will treat your cousin well? What does Grandma mean? Is Mrs. Xue's family a bad person? Not necessarily. Not all stepmothers in this world are bad people. Grandma raised my dad and treated him like her own. Xie Jiwei deliberately tilted his head. With a confused look on his face, as if he couldn't figure out the reason. Is that so? These words are usually said by Feng himself. The Feng family suddenly couldn't see through it. When she married in, Xia Yuanbai was already 5 years old. The day she entered the house, the old man moved the eldest son to the front yard to raise him personally. Even so, she did not let go of raising the crooked son firstborn chance. Because of this, Feng said that he would never hand over his granddaughter to his stepmother, and would never send his granddaughter back to the Xue family. Feng Sure held back her breath and said, Sister Wei, when I get back to the mansion, Grandma will ask your cousin to pay you for it. I don't know how Grandma plans to punish my cousin. Xie Jiwei knew that just this time, she would not be able to drive Xue Wanqing home. She had no hope, but the skill of negotiation is that if you want the other party to cut off a piece of meat, you should think about it with a big mouth first. Ask the other party to take off an arm, so that you can bargain and let the other party give up that piece of meat. Feng subconsciously pinched the 18.Z bracelet in her hand. She wanted to slap Xie Jiwei on the face. She just said something casually, first coaxing Xie Jiwei back to the house, and then talking about it. As for punishing Sister Qing's son, how could she be willing? But now, Xie Jiwei is not so easy to coax, and she has to come up with something substantial. Grandmother will punish her to copy the Analects of women 100 times. Ahem. Xie Jiwei covered his lips with a handkerchief, and coughed twice. Grandmother, granddaughter should go to the Zhuangzi to recuperate. The granddaughter was pushed down the pond, and she didn't even invite a doctor. She was caught in the cold. The Empress is guilty. Yuan set aside, Mei, your grandmother has always been fair and will definitely make decisions for you. On that day, Shui Wanqing was pushed into the pond by Xie Jiwei. The only doctor in the town was invited by Feng Shi, and he didn't let that doctor take Xie Jiwei's pulse at all, wishing she could die from the cold. At this time, in order for Xie Jiwei not to cause trouble and not to talk nonsense in front of the Empress, Feng could only back down again and again, gritted his teeth and said, Grandmother will punish your cousin to kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days. Your sisters are connected by blood, so what's the matter? Can't make it through. Feng was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Xie Jiwei hooked his lips, and said calmly, Granddaughter, thank Grandma for upholding justice. Kneeling at the ancestral hall, Shui Wanqing is a person with a foreign surname. What right does she have to kneel to thank her family's ancestral hall? Feng Shi really doesn't treat Shui Wanqing as an outsider. Xie Jiwei remained calm and got into the carriage. As the sun sets, the orange-red light shines on the majestic and solid city walls. In Shangjing, the imperial capital of Daong, Xie Jiwei stared blankly at the tower, with a deep and sharp light flashing in his eyes. Tuck tuck tuck. The ground shook, and the coachman hurriedly drove the carriage to the side of the road. A group of hundreds of people came on horseback. On the black flag, a silver eagle was embroidered soaring. The cloak is rolled up like clouds, and the flying clouds under the crotch are galloping like the wind, as if riding on clouds. The male protagonist is haunted, be careful to avoid it. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Shao Sun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Shao Sun. Xie Jiwei closed his eyes in his previous life, and the last person he saw was Shao Sun. At that time, he was also wearing a silver armor, wearing a red cloak, and carrying a silver gun, and came quickly. At this time, seeing Shao Sun again, Xie Jiwei really did not expect that Shao Sun was so high-spirited when he was young. He was a steed with silver guns, his eyebrows were lightly raised, and his already delicate face was shrouded in the orange sunset, which was hotter than July. Be very proud. Miss, you are the king of Qinjun. Zmo exclaimed, my servant heard that the king of Qinjun was only 13 years old, so he led 5,000 soldiers and went to Ganzhou to quell the rebellion. Before he returned to Beijing, His Majesty decreed that he should be named the king of the county. Girls can't sleep anymore. Xie Jiwei couldn't help smiling. She nodded Zmo's forehead. How do you know that girls all over the capital can't sleep? I have to admit that if we divide the colors of the world into 10, Shao Sun will account for 90.9. The young man is full of energy and spirit, and his talent is outstanding. Young Master Shao is from the side concubine of Prince Xiang's mansion. He was not conferred the title of county king before, but every time he went out, he was blocked by ladies all over the capital in the street waiting for him to pass by to feast his eyes on him. Now he has been named county king because of his military achievements. Don't you think people are crazy? Let's go back to the mansion today. It's really not the right time. The king of Qin County is haunted, and the streets must not be blocked. It is indeed not good to go out today. Why did I meet Shao Sun returning to the city? In the previous life, after Shui Wanqing pushed her down the pond, she didn't dare to fight back, so Feng didn't leave her and her mother in Feynman Temple. How to throw the fruit and the car is empty. Xie Jiwei's gaze followed Shao Sun's back, as if he had sensed it, Xiao Sun turned his head to look over, and a pair of wonderful eyes fell into his eyes, which were clear and deep, revealing a sense of familiarity that he could not fathom, as if the two have been close friends for many years. At the gate of the city, the fourth prince, Xiao Changxian, brought 6 officials from 6 ministries to welcome Prince Chen back to the capital. Xiao Sun got off his horse, threw the silver gun to Mohen, and walked towards Xiao Changxian. "Fifth brother, you are finally back. Father has been thinking about you for a long time, so he ordered me to come and greet you a few steps first. Father is waiting in the palace to cleanse fifth brother." Xiao Changxian walked forward quickly. Xiao Sun bowed his hands and saluted, "Thank you, your majesty, for your great love." The people brought by Xiao Changxian came forward to greet Xiao Sun one after another. "This young man like the scorching sun is so amazing and talented. Who would have thought that at such a young age, he would use soldiers like A and lead 5,000 forbidden troops to pacify King Yu of Ganzhou. In the rebellion, he beheaded the king of Yu and made a great contribution. From the gate of the city to the main street of Wufeng Tower, the soldiers and horses of the 5 cities used all their strength to barely maintain order, which could accommodate a group of people such as the fourth prince and the king of Qinjun. The owners of restaurants and tea-houses made a fortune. 3 days ago, the good seats facing the street were fully booked, and there were no empty seats. Both sides of the street were crowded with onlookers, including men, women and children. Flowers, fragrant fruits, and embroidered handkerchiefs were thrown over like rain. The girls who walked 3 times on weekdays and covered their faces with words were not ashamed. They are dizzy with joy. Xie Jiwei's carriage fell behind, and seeing the scene of the uproar, he couldn't help but marvel at the enthusiasm and madness of Dayong's daughters. After walking for half an hour on weekdays, I walked for nearly an hour, and finally entered Tianshuang Street. The 2 big lions in front of Xie's house came into Xie Jiwei's eyes. She squeezed her veiled hand, slightly tightened up. The car enters through the west corner gate, and the second bedroom Mrs. Xiao led the female family members of the mansion to wait in front of the Chuehua gate. Seeing the old lady get off the car, she hurriedly stretched out her hand to help. "Grandma, you are finally back, Qing'er Mrs. Grandma." Shui Wanqing ran towards Feng Shi like a swallow returning to her nest, and threw herself into Feng Shi's arms. Feng stretched out his arms to hug Shui Wanqing pitifully, and patted her on the back affectionately. "Grandmother, it's time for my cousin to go back to Shui's house and kneel in the ancestral hall." Xie Jiwei walked over slowly, Qing Lingling's eyes swept over Shui Wanqing, and looked at Feng's. Feng's face froze, she didn't understand what Xie Jiwei said. "Since my grandmother wants to punish my cousin to kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days, she will not kneel in the ancestral hall of Xie's family, right? My cousin's surname is Shui. You can take it back." Shui Wanqing's eyes widened in shock. Why did the plot go this way? Why should she go back to the Shui family to kneel in the ancestral hall? What kind of feudal dross is this? Shui Wanqing burst into tears, her voice trembling. "What is the eldest cousin talking about? Why did my grandmother punish me to kneel in the ancestral hall? Did I do something wrong?" Xie Jiwei looked at Shui Wanqing with cold eyes, and scenes flashed in his mind. Once, Shui Wanqing hugged the mandarin duck red quilt, leaned against Xiao Changshuan's naked arms, and said tearfully, "Sister, I love Shiro, I can't live without him, I ask my sister to be fulfilled, I don't ask for a name, but I want to be with Shiro." Shui Wanqing fell to the ground, her body was stained with pig blood, her face was pale, she pointed at her and said bitterly, "Sister, how vicious you are, you can't have children by yourself, so you persecute my and Shiro's children." Shui Wanqing, with a phoenix crown and a phoenix robe, stood tall at the door of the cold palace, looking at her with compassion and pity. "Sister, your majesty decreed that the whole family of Xie's family should be executed. You said that from now on, besides sister, there will be people who will remember Xie's family. Is it? Aristocratic family hairpin tassels are nothing more than that. Xie Jiwei stared at Shui Wanqing with his dark eyes, and there seemed to be a vortex deep in his eyes that wanted to swallow Shui Wanqing. Feng's heart aches for her granddaughter, but now, the situation is stronger than others. She was afraid of messing up the big plan, so she had to be cruel. Naturally outsiders can't kneel in the ancestral hall of the Xie family. Sister Wei, why don't you let your cousin kneel in the small Buddhist hall? Grandmother, my granddaughter is afraid that her cousin will be too vicious, so she will offend the Buddha. Grandmother said she wants her cousin to kneel in the ancestral hall, so it's not good to go back on what she says. Shui Wanqing's face turned pale all of a sudden. How could she go back to Shui's house and kneel in the ancestral hall? Xie Jiwei didn't care about her face at all. It's unbearable. Big cousin, do you want to force me to death? Are you bullying me for being motherless? Shui Wanqing's eyes were red and her voice was sharp. Cousin, when did Mrs. Shui's family pass away? Why didn't you report the funeral to Xie's family? You are really unfilial to curse Mrs. Shui's family. Xie Ji sneered. Fortunately, I said this at home. Doesn't it mean that the Xie family raised the girls of the Shui family badly, and even the reputation of the sisters in the family has been damaged? Mrs. Xiao came forward. She is the daughter-in-law of Mrs. Feng's direct relatives. She is very fond of Mrs. Feng, and she is also in the palm of her hand. Mother, Biao girl has not been back to Shui's house for many days. It's the old lady's birthday, and the cousin really should go back. If not, let the daughter-in-law send the cousin back. Xie Jiwei knew in his heart that Xiao was trying to smooth things over to prevent Feng from stepping down. Shui Wanqing was sent back by Xiao, and it was Xie Jiwei's decision whether to kneel in the ancestral hall or not in the name of Mrs. Shui's birthday. Zhao's work has always been smooth and beautiful. Xie Jiwei knew what they were up to, and if they insisted on doing so, Xie Jiwei didn't mind making the incident bigger and more ugly. Xiao Sun. Mei, they don't believe me when I say I'm the hero. Xie Jiwei. The prince begged for a ticket, and they believed it. Today's update. Ask for tickets, let me know you are there. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Justice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Fairness. Xie Jiwei glanced at Feng Shi coldly, and Feng Shi's back felt cold. She finally learned how powerful this granddaughter is today. If it weren't for Xiao Shi, she would really not be able to step down from the unfamiliar white-eyed wolf. Sister Qing, you were wrong that day. Grandmother punished you for copying the Analects of women 100 times, and then went back to Shui's house to kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days, up. Shui Wanqing looked at Feng Shi in disbelief. She was so wrong that she burst into tears. Grandmother, it was clearly my eldest cousin who slipped down the pond by herself. Why did you only punish Qing'er? Even if she pushed Xie Jiwei into the pond, wouldn't Xie Jiwei reciprocate? The original body paid Xie Jiwei with his life, but Xie Jiwei still refused to let him go. Her luck is also really bad. As soon as she crosses over, the direction of the plot changes. Could it be because of her own time travel? Feng is a little irritable. She is a granddaughter, she is still a little too tender. Since she pushed Xie Jiwei and didn't drown her, she should think of endless troubles. This child has always learned the general idea, and today he has learned Xie Jiwei's pettiness, so he can't bear any grievances. Sister Qing, Mrs. Shui's birthday is approaching, and it's time for you to go back and kowtow to your grandmother. Xiao said with a smile. This second aunt is also a sweet-hearted and poisonous person. Shui Wanqing decided to take a step back for the time being. She is a newcomer, and although she has memories of her original body, she is not yet able to grasp the situation accurately enough. Then trouble the second aunt. Shui Wanqing was still not reconciled. Xie Jiwei was only so aggressive because she took the status of the eldest daughter of the Xie family. The grandfather and grandmother of the Xie family are still alive, and the uncles and aunts are all present, so it's not the eldest cousin's turn to be in charge of this family. Such a poor way to sow discord. Xia Jiwei felt that he really looked up to this cousin, so stupid, how could he lose so badly in his previous life? Xia Jiwei ignored her, but looked at Xia Zhihui, second sister. The eldest princess invited me to go to the palace to play with her tomorrow, and said that I can bring my younger sister with me. I wonder if the second sister will be free tomorrow. If she is free, can you accompany me to the palace? Ms. Xiao originally cared about what Xue Wanqing said, and was dissatisfied with Xia Jiwei's arrogance, but now she smiled and pushed Xia Zhihui, Sister Hui, please thank you big sister. Big sister, can I go? I've never been in a palace, I'm afraid I don't understand etiquette, and I'll lose face to the Xia family. Second sister is worrying too much. I have been handing down family poems and rites for more than 100 years. I know etiquette best. How can I make a mistake? If the second sister is worried, I will ask Mother Chiu to explain the palace rules to the second sister. It's a good feeling. Xiao couldn't help but slammed good words on Xia Jiwei. Sister Wei is really the eldest sister, she knows how to take care of her sisters, and there are some good satin at the second aunt's place. Someone will make 2 winter clothes for you and your sister. Second aunt's kindness, Weier appreciates it. Please trouble second aunt to send my cousin back to Xue's house for punishment. Second aunt should talk to the eldest wife of Xue's family. This. Xiao was suddenly embarrassed, and hated Xia Jiwei in her heart, so she said, why is Xia Jiwei so kind? So he was waiting here. But let her say that her daughter is not allowed to enter the palace with Xia Jiwei, she is reluctant to give up such an opportunity. You must know that if she falls into the eyes of the empress, her daughter's marriage will go up in the future. Seeing that her daughter is 10 years old, she will start discussing marriage after the new year. Mother, if a person does something wrong, he should be punished. In such a cold day, my cousin pushed my elder sister into the pond. It's really wrong. Is it possible that my cousin should cry? This punishment shouldn't be received. In the future, wouldn't anyone be able to act recklessly and not obey the rules? Xia Zhihui endured it for a long time, but she was helpless. Grandma, mother, and aunts were all in front of her, so she had no place to speak, but she couldn't bear Xue Wanqing's behavior. Eating rice from Xia's family, wearing clothes from Xia's family, and even murdering Xia's family. Feng's liver hurts from anger, but Xia Zhihui is her granddaughter. Ms. Xiao weighed it over and over again, and she already had an idea in her heart, and she would not say it stupidly to displease her mother. Law. When she arrived at Xue's house, it would not be too late to act according to circumstances. Xia Jiwei is not worried about Xiao Shi, she is very clear, with Xiao Shi's shrewdness, she knows how to choose. Even though Xue Wanqing admitted that she lost this round, she was too irritated to lose. Cousin Hui, why don't you even distinguish between black and white? It is clear that the eldest cousin slipped into the pond by herself, and I was also implicated and pushed into the pond by her. Everyone is at fault, why should I be the only one punished? Eldest cousin, she is still so arrogant and unrelenting. Xue Wanqing touched the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, glanced around, and saw the inconceivable expressions of the people around her, so she knew that public opinion was really important. Cousin Qing, there was no one else by the pond at the time. You said that the eldest sister slipped down to vent her anger on you, and there was no one to prove it. You can't just say what it is. The Xia family has never been so unreasonable. Big sister is sensible, what do you mean? Big sister is unreasonable, and it's not fair for grandma to punish you alone for not knowing right from wrong. What a little fool, no wonder the book said that Xia Zhihui was cheated to death and didn't even know how she died, she deserved it. Sister Hui, that's enough, this matter has nothing to do with you. The old lady was very angry. Xia Zhihui didn't realize it, but said to Xia Jiwei with satisfaction, big sister, grandma still looks after you. Grandma finally managed justice. Xia Jiwei curled his lips into a smile, and said, naturally, after all, my surname is Xia, and my cousin's surname is Xue. The old lady didn't believe that the two sisters deliberately staged this play, neither did Shui Wanqing. The book said that Xie Zhihui took Xie Zhiwei as an example, and she didn't want to fall into the lintel of the Xie family's family of poetry and calligraphy. Seeing that her daughter succeeded in driving the old lady to half her life, Xiao didn't know it, and felt quite helpless. Her daughter was born less than ordinary people, not to mention, and she always blamed her for it. As a mother, she was born into a wealthy family. Why didn't she come from a family of poetry and rituals like her late aunt? She always felt inferior when she was compared to Xie Zhiwei. Big sister has been exhausted all the way, go back to the yard with my aunt to freshen up and have a rest. After the big sister settles down, I will talk to the big sister for advice. Xie Zhiwei and Yuan Shi sent Feng Shi a few steps. Obviously, Feng Shi didn't want to see them at all, and said without looking back, "Go and rest first, I don't need you to serve me here." End of this chapter.